There's a moment a lot of people don't see coming, reaching down to tie a shoe and feeling the hip object before the hands even get there. It's not pain exactly, more like resistance, a sense that this particular movement now costs something it never used to. And once that happens a few times, something quieter starts to shift. You begin choosing the chair with higher armrests without really deciding to. You angle your body a certain way getting into the car. You stop sitting on the floor with the grandkids, not because anyone told you to, but because getting back up became its own project. None of that looks like a health problem from the outside. It looks like preference, like getting a little more careful with age, the kind of thing people wave off with a joke about getting older. But underneath it, something specific is usually happening. The hip, one of the most complex joints in the body, has quietly narrowed the range it's willing to move through, and the body has adjusted its entire behavior around that narrower range without asking permission. Here's the part worth sitting with. Stiffness feeds itself. A hip that feels tight gets avoided. A hip that gets avoided moves less. A hip that moves less gets tighter. It's a loop. And most people fall into it without ever choosing to, simply because avoiding a mildly uncomfortable movement feels reasonable in the moment. Breaking that loop doesn't require anything dramatic, it just requires asking the hip to move through the ranges it's been quietly skipping on purpose a little at a time. That loop rarely stays contained to the hip either. A knee that quietly compensates for a stiff hip absorbs stress it was never built to handle. A lower back that twists to make up for a hip that won't rotate ends up carrying double duty. This is one of the quieter reasons unrelated aches sometimes show up in places that seem unconnected. A cranky knee, a nagging lower back, they're often not unrelated at all, just the downstream cost of one joint working around a limitation instead of through it. This isn't about chasing the flexibility of a dancer or forcing a stretch that hurts. Everyone's starting point is different, and that's fine. There's no single benchmark you're supposed to hit by a certain date. Some of you have stayed fairly active and just feel a bit tighter than before. Others are coming back to movement after a long stretch of sitting more than moving. If you've had a hip replacement, a labral tear, or any diagnosis that makes certain hip positions risky, the movements ahead need a green light from your doctor or physical therapist first, since not every hip should be treated the same way. One more thing before we get into it. The hip doesn't move in just one direction, so a single stretch was never going to be the whole answer. It flexes when you climb a stair. It extends when you push off to walk. It rotates when you turn to check over your shoulder. It shifts side to side when you step around something in your path. The 6 movements below are built around that reality, working through different directions rather than repeating the same motion 6 times with different names.
It's worth saying plainly, none of this is about becoming more flexible than you were at 30, and it's definitely not a competition against anyone else doing a version of this routine. A hip that regains even a modest amount of its lost range can change how confidently you move through an ordinary Tuesday, how easily you bend to pet the dog, how naturally you step off a curb without glancing down first. Small, unglamorous wins tend to be the real currency here, not dramatic flexibility gains that make for an impressive photo. There's also no need to do all 6 every single day for this to work. Think of it less like a strict prescription and more like a toolkit. 6 ways to ask your hip to move that you can rotate through. Lean on more heavily where you feel the most restriction, and adjust as your body tells you what it needs on a given day. Exercise 1. Standing hip extension. Start here because this is the one that shows up most directly in how you walk. Every stride you take depends on your back leg extending behind you before it swings forward again. And when that motion gets limited, walking itself tends to shrink. Shorter steps, a more cautious pace, even if nothing about it looks obviously wrong to anyone watching. Stand behind a sturdy chair, hands resting on the backrest, feet roughly hip-width apart. Keeping the knees straight but not locked, slowly send one leg backward, away from your body, without letting your torso pitch forward to steal extra range. Pause at the furthest point that still feels controlled, then bring the leg back to center. Repeat, then switch legs. Here's where it goes sideways for most people. The torso leans forward the moment the leg reaches its limit, quietly asking the lower back to finish what the hip couldn't. If you catch that happening, shrink the movement. A short, clean extension with an upright torso does far more than a longer one propped up by compensation. You already do a version of this hundreds of times a day without noticing,
Every single step forward asks the trailing leg to extend, just like this. That's exactly why it earns the top spot on this list. A hip that extends freely tends to produce a longer, steadier stride, and a shorter, hesitant one tends to do the opposite. Expect a moderate pull through the back of the hip and glute as you move. Nothing sharp, nothing that reaches into the lower back. If balance feels shaky, keep both hands on the chair and work with a smaller range until it settles. Once the movement feels stable, the natural next step isn't a bigger range, it's a longer hold at the back of the motion, a second or two of pause before returning. That small addition asks the hip to work a little harder without changing anything about the movement itself. Exercise 2. Standing hip flexor stretch. If there's one area on this list that's almost guaranteed to be tight, it's this one. Every hour spent seated quietly shortens the muscles at the front of the hip. And because sitting fills so much of an average day, in the car, at the table, in front of a screen, this tightness tends to build up for years before anyone thinks to address it directly.
Face a sturdy chair or countertop and hold it lightly. Step one foot back into a relaxed, staggered stance, back heel lifted, back knee softly bent. Tuck your hips gently forward and under, and you'll feel the stretch travel along the front of the hip and thigh on that back leg. Hold, breathe, then switch sides. The lower back tends to want to arch here, chasing a deeper sensation by bending backward instead of tucking the pelvis. It feels like more stretch, but it's really just shifting the load somewhere it shouldn't be. Keep the tailbone tucked under and the torso tall, even if the stretch itself ends up feeling smaller. This might be the single most useful stretch in the entire routine if your days involve a lot of sitting, since a tight hip flexor quietly tilts the pelvis forward and can shorten your walking stride without you realizing why. Loosen this, and standing tall often gets noticeably easier almost immediately. You're aiming for a steady pull through the front of the hip and thigh, never anything in the knee. Uncertain footing in the staggered stance? Hold with both hands and bring your feet closer together. As the front of the hip loosens over time, you'll notice you can step slightly further back into the stance while keeping that same tucked pelvis. Let that happen gradually rather than forcing a bigger step before the tissue is ready for it. Exercise 3. Seated figure 4 stretch. Buried deep behind the hip is a muscle that rarely gets a mention by name, but has an outsized effect on how comfortable sitting, turning, and stepping all feel. The piriformis, along with its neighbors at the back of the hip. When this area tightens, sitting for long stretches can start to feel less pleasant, and rotating the leg can start to feel more limited than it used to. Sit toward the front edge of a sturdy chair, cross one ankle over the opposite knee, letting that crossed knee drop out to the side into something like the shape of a 4. Keeping your back reasonably straight, lean forward from the hips until you feel it through the outer hip and glute of the crossed leg. Hold, then switch. Resist the urge to press down on the crossed knee to force a deeper stretch quickly. It might feel productive for a second, but in an area already prone to tension, that kind of pressure often backfires. A slow forward lean, hips doing the work instead of hands pushing down, gets you further without the backlash. This is the area that often explains why sitting for a while starts to feel uncomfortable in ways that are hard to pin down. Loosening it tends to make longer car rides, dinners, or afternoons in a favorite chair noticeably easier on the body. The stretch should feel deep but manageable through the outer hip, never sharp and never shooting down the leg. If it does, back out of the position and try a version with less forward lean. With practice, the forward lean that once felt like the edge of your range will start to feel like the starting point, and that's your cue to hold a touch longer rather than lean any deeper. Time under stretch matters more here than depth. Exercise 4. Standing hip abduction. Now to the outer hip, home to the muscles responsible for lifting the leg sideways and, more importantly, for keeping the pelvis level with every single step you take. This area tends to weaken right alongside stiffness, since a hip that isn't moved much isn't also being asked to work much. Hold a sturdy chair with both hands, standing leg slightly soft at the knee. Lift the other leg out to the side, kept fairly straight, toes pointed forward rather than turned out. Rise only as high as you can manage without leaning your upper body the opposite direction to compensate. Lower slowly, repeat, then switch legs. The giveaway here is a torso that tilts away from the lifting leg, which makes the leg look higher than it actually is, while quietly doing less real work.
An upright torso and a shorter lift beats a taller lift built on a lean every time. This one has a direct payoff for walking on anything less than perfectly flat ground, sidewalks with a slope, grass, gravel, since the outer hip is what keeps your pelvis from dropping to one side with each step on uneven terrain. Expect focused effort through the outer hip and upper thigh, moderate, not intense. If your balance wavers, hold the chair with both hands and trim the height of the lift until things feel steadier. Once the lift feels easy at your current height, resist the urge to swing the leg higher and instead slow the tempo down, taking a full 2 or 3 seconds to lift and the same to lower. That change alone makes the muscle work considerably harder without adding any risk. Exercise 5. Seated butterfly stretch. The inner hip and groin have a habit of tightening in near silence, mostly from years of sitting with the knees close together and rarely letting the legs open out to the side. Most people don't notice this one until something demands it directly, stepping wide over an obstacle, sliding into a low seat at an angle, that sort of thing. Sit at the edge of a sturdy chair or on the floor if that works for you, and bring the soles of your feet together, knees falling open to the sides. Rest your hands on your feet or ankles. Lean your torso forward from the hips, keeping your back fairly straight rather than curling through the shoulders. Hold, breathe, then come back upright. Rounding through the back to lean further is the trap here, chasing extra range by collapsing the spine instead of hinging cleanly at the hips. That trades a hip stretch for lower back strain, which isn't the deal you were looking for. Give this one time rather than force. The inner hip tends to be slow to open and quick to tighten back up if neglected, so a few consistent minutes several times a week will do more for this area than one ambitious stretch attempted once and forgotten.
Exercise 6. Standing hip circles. Save this one for last and use it as a kind of conversation with the hip rather than a workout. A chance to notice, now that the other 5 have had their turn, where things feel freer and where they still don't.
Hold a sturdy chair for balance, shift your weight onto one leg and lift the other knee in front of you. Trace a wide, slow circle with that knee, out to the side, back behind you, and around to the front, like drawing a circle in the air. Do several in one direction, then reverse. Switch legs. Rushing is the most common way to waste this one, along with keeping the circles too small to actually tell you anything. Slow it down. A big, unhurried circle reveals far more about where you stand today than a fast little loop ever will. Think about how often your hip actually needs to move in more than one direction at once, sidestepping around a chair, turning to grab something off a shelf, adjusting your stance at the sink. Pure forward and back movement is rare in daily life. This circle rehearses the blend that's actually common. The sensation shifts as the knee travels through the circle, gentle and exploratory rather than a fixed stretch. If one section of the circle feels noticeably tighter, that's simply useful information about where to keep paying attention. Over the following weeks, that tighter section is worth watching. If it starts to feel like the rest of the circle instead of the sticking point, that's one of the clearest signs the other 5 movements are actually doing their job.
Hip mobility rarely announces its own improvement. It shows up sideways, in a shoe that goes on without the little balancing act, in a car door that no longer needs 3 attempts to clear, in stepping around a stray shoe on the floor without that flicker of hesitation. None of that feels like a fitness win in the moment. It just feels like life getting slightly easier, which is really the whole point. Some days will feel tighter than others, regardless of how consistent you've been. A long day of sitting, a rough night's sleep, cold weather, plenty of things can make a stretch feel less available than it did yesterday. That's not regression. Hip mobility tends to improve unevenly, with dips along the way that don't cancel out the overall trend. If today happens to be one of those tighter days, that's simply a reason to move a little more gently through the routine, not a reason to skip it altogether. There's another marker worth watching for, one that has nothing to do with how far you can move and everything to do with how little you think about it. Early on, most of these movements ask for real attention, checking your foot position, remembering to keep the torso upright, noticing when the lower back tries to take over. Weeks in, a lot of that starts to happen automatically. That shift toward ease, movements that no longer require your full concentration, is often a better sign of progress than any measurement of range. It's the same shift that eventually shows up outside the routine too, in the moments you stop bracing for a movement and simply do it. What actually moves the needle here is showing up often, not showing up hard. A handful of minutes with these 6 movements several times a week will outperform one long, deep stretching session every couple of weeks. And because none of this leaves you sore, it's easy enough to fold into a morning or evening that already exists. If your hip pain is significant, sudden, or tied to a specific diagnosis, this routine isn't a substitute for professional guidance, it's a complement to it once you've gotten the green light. If you want more of this kind of practical, no-nonsense movement guidance for life after 50, subscribe. Not for a bigger library of exercises, but for the reasoning behind them, so you can tell the difference between movement that actually helps and movement that just looks good on a thumbnail. The hip you have today isn't fixed in place. It's simply been asked to do less than it's capable of, and that's a much easier thing to change than most people assume.